The Rixian ambassador's crystalline wings shattered as she collapsed in the United Earth Embassy, her iridescent fragments scattering across the marble floor. In 30 years of diplomatic relations, no human had ever seen a Rixian's wings break from emotional distress. Ambassador Lin rushed to catch the falling alien, her heart pounding as she realized what this meant. They voted to let it happen, the Rixian whispered, her multifaceted eyes dimming. The council, they're going to let the Crixians take everything. Lin's mind raced back to humanity's first contact with the Rixians 3 decades ago. They'd been everything Earth hoped to find among the stars, peaceful, artistic, their crystalline cities floating among the clouds of their homeworld. They'd welcomed humanity into the galactic community, sponsored Earth's membership in the Council, shared their advanced medical technology freely. Now the Galactic Council had betrayed them all. How many votes? Lin demanded, already reaching for her emergency comm unit. 12 to 5. The ambassador's voice cracked like breaking crystal. The Crixian Empire's peacekeeping operation has been officially sanctioned. Our colonies, our homeworld. Lin knew what that meant. She'd seen the classified reports of what happened on worlds that underwent Crixian peacekeeping. Entire populations reduced to slave labor, their resources stripped, their cultures erased. The Rixians would be extinct within a generation. Unless Earth did something about it. Her comm unit chimed with an encrypted message. The council vote details had just been leaked by a sympathetic source. Lin's eyes widened as she saw the credit transfers, the private communications, the web of corruption that had led to this moment. The Crixians hadn't just won the vote, they'd bought it. Listen to me, Lin said, helping the ambassador to a seat. Earth doesn't recognize this vote. We won't let this happen. But the Council's authority. To hell with their authority. Lin's voice was steel. 30 years ago, your people chose to trust humanity. You showed us kindness when we were alone in the galaxy. And humanity doesn't abandon its friends. She pressed her comm unit again, entering the highest emergency code in Earth's diplomatic protocols. In orbital stations and hidden shipyards across Earth's territory, klaxons began to sound. Classified vessels, whose existence had been kept secret even from the Council, powered up their systems. Earth had hoped to never need its hidden fleet. But they'd built it anyway, because humanity had learned the hard way that hope wasn't enough. The ambassador's wings began to regenerate, hope flickering in her alien eyes. And in that moment, as Lin sent the signal that would withdraw Earth from the Galactic Council, she knew humanity was about to remind the galaxy why you should never mistake kindness for weakness. Or betray humanity's friends. Admiral Helena Chen stood at the viewport of Earth's secret Titan base, watching as maintenance drones swarmed over the sleek hull of the UES Righteous Fury. The experimental warship's quantum stealth systems made it look like a heat mirage against Saturn's rings, its outlines seeming to shift and blur even when stationary. It was beautiful, in a deadly way. And soon, it would prove that humanity's kindness had teeth. The Security Council is split, Fleet Commander Rogers said behind her. Half of them think we're committing suicide by opposing the Galactic Council. The other half think we're not moving fast enough to help the Rixians. Chen didn't turn around. And what do you think, James? I think you're the only person qualified to make this call. You've seen what happens when we let politics outweigh morality. Chen's artificial hand clenched involuntarily. 35 years ago, she'd watched her home colony of New Singapore burn because the Earth government had decided appeasing pirates was cheaper than defending frontier worlds. She'd lost her family, her arm, and her faith in political expedience that day. She'd never let it happen to anyone else. Show me the latest intelligence, she ordered, turning to face the holographic display. It sprang to life, showing the positions of Crixian warships moving toward Rixian space. The enemy vessels were huge, brutal things, city-sized ships designed to project power through overwhelming force. They had no idea what was coming for them. The Rixian refugee ships have begun arriving in Sol System, Rogers reported. Their stories. He paused, composing himself. The Crixians aren't even waiting for the Council's mandatory waiting period. They're already moving against outer colony worlds. Burning libraries, destroying art galleries, rounding up anyone who might remember Rixian culture. Cultural genocide, Chen said quietly. Just like they did to the Bryn. And the Tather. And every other species that trusted the Council to protect them. She turned to the next display, showing Earth's hidden fleet. Decades of preparation, masked as routine construction projects and research stations. Ships built with technology reverse-engineered from a dozen species, improved by human ingenuity and paranoia. A junior officer burst into the command center, face flushed. Admiral. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Rixian flagship. They say the Crixians just hit their colony on Lamera. Full orbital bombardment. Civilian targets. Chen's artificial hand crushed the datapad she was holding. How many casualties? Initial estimates are in the hundreds of thousands. The Crixians claimed it was a peacekeeping action against terrorists. Terrorists. Chen's voice could have frozen nitrogen. Show me the casualty zones. The display shifted to show Lamera. The Crixians had specifically targeted cultural centers, universities, hospitals, anywhere that held the heart of Rixian civilization. They weren't just taking territory. They were trying to erase an entire species' identity. Send word to all fleet commanders, Chen ordered. Operation Righteous Fury begins in 6 hours. And contact Ambassador Lin, tell her to release everything we have on the Council's corruption. Every bribe, every secret deal, every betrayal. Let the galaxy see what their peacekeepers really are. The Council will claim we fabricated the evidence, Rogers warned. Let them. Sometimes the truth hits harder than any weapon. Chen turned back to the viewport, watching Earth's hidden fleet power up their systems. And James? Send a message to the Rixian refugees. Tell them Earth remembers its friends. Tell them that before this is over, they'll have their homes back. Or we'll burn trying. As alarms began to sound throughout the base, Chen allowed herself a grim smile. The Galactic Council thought they were dealing with the same humanity they'd first met 30 years ago, eager to please, desperate to be accepted among the stars. They were about to learn how much humanity had grown. And how far Earth would go to protect its allies. The Righteous Fury's engines began to glow, its quantum stealth field rippling like heat waves off hot metal. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn why humanity's warships had such evocative names. And why Earth's fury, once roused, was anything but righteous. The Crixian supply fleet never saw Earth's ships coming. In the void between Lamera and the Crixian staging point, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. The UES Righteous Fury materialized from nothing, its quantum stealth field collapsing in a cascade of impossible colors. Behind it, 12 more Earth warships dropped their cloaks, their black hulls drinking in starlight. Multiple Crixian signatures detected, the Fury's tactical officer reported. 15 heavy transports, 5 escort cruisers. They're launching fighters. Admiral Chen watched from the command chair as Crixian vessels scrambled to combat positions. Their ships were massive, bristling with weapons, each escort cruiser massing more than Earth's entire attack fleet combined. But size wasn't everything. Send the message, Chen ordered. Across all frequencies, in every language used by spacefaring species, Earth's declaration boomed, "This is Admiral Helena Chen of the United Earth Fleet. Your actions against the Rixian people constitute crimes against sapience. Surrender now, or face the consequences of your choices." The Crixian response came instantly, "Earth vessel, you have no authority here. The Galactic Council has sanctioned our peacekeeping operation. Stand down or be destroyed." Chen's artificial hand tightened on her chair's armrest. Tactical, target their engines. Non-lethal strikes only. Let's show them what humanity's been working on. The Fury's experimental weapons came online. Graviton lance beams, reverse-engineered from Rixian medical scanners and repurposed into weapons that could selectively disrupt mass in targeted areas. Quantum disruptors that could temporarily phase matter out of normal spacetime. Technologies that the Council's spacefaring races had dismissed as theoretical impossibilities. Fire. The battle lasted exactly 6 minutes and 23 seconds. When it was over, every Crixian ship hung dead in space, their crews alive but their vessels reduced to floating hulks. Not a single life had been lost. Send in the boarding teams, Chen ordered. I want every scrap of data from their computers, every supply manifest, every command code. And make sure the crews are treated well, they're about to become our witnesses. As Earth Marines secured the Crixian ships, news of the battle spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Council erupted into chaos. Humanity had not only dared to challenge their authority, they'd done it with technology that shouldn't exist. Admiral, Rogers called from his station. We're receiving transmissions from everywhere. The Bryn, the Tather, a dozen other species who've suffered under Council peacekeeping. They're offering support. And the Council species? Mixed reactions. Some are calling for immediate sanctions against Earth. Others. He smiled. Others are asking very pointed questions about why their governments told them quantum stealth was impossible. Chen nodded. Send the battle footage to every news network in Council space. Let them see that we could have killed those crews, but chose not to. Let them see what really happens in their name. The Fury sensors pinged an alert. A massive Crixian battle fleet had just jumped into the system, led by their flagship, a vessel the size of a small moon. They're demanding our immediate surrender, Rogers reported. Claiming that if we resist, they'll be forced to declare full war on Earth. Chen's smile was cold. Tell them to check their secure channels first. Across Crixian space, carefully planted Earth AI systems were coming online, releasing proof of decades of Crixian atrocities. Evidence of genocide, of slavery, of systematic corruption, all gathered by patient human intelligence operations. Admiral. The tactical officer's voice was urgent. Multiple new contacts. It's the Bryn Defense Fleet. And the Tather ships, they're taking up attack positions alongside us. On the main screen, more ships were appearing. Smaller races, species that had suffered under Council peacekeeping, were choosing sides. Not all of them, many were still too afraid of Crixian retaliation. But enough. Send to all Allied vessels, Chen ordered. This is humanity's promise. What was taken will be returned. What was broken will be rebuilt. And those who turn justice into a weapon will face true justice at last. The Crixian battle fleet began to advance. Behind them, more Council ships were appearing, some to support them, others to oppose them. The galaxy's political balance, maintained for centuries through corruption and force, was shattering. And in the center of it all, Earth's ships prepared to show the galaxy that humanity's most powerful weapons weren't their graviton lances or quantum disruptors. It was their capacity to inspire others to stand up for what was right. The holographic display showed New Albany burning. Crixian warships hung in orbit above Earth's largest colony world, their weapon signatures pulsing as they methodically reduced cities to ash. Admiral Chen watched the destruction with cold eyes, her artificial hand crushing another datapad. Civilian casualties, she asked, her voice terrifyingly calm. Minimal, Rogers replied. We got lucky, our deep cover intelligence agents caught wind of the attack 6 hours before it happened. The emergency evacuation protocols worked. 98% of the population made it to the underground shelters before the bombardment began. They're not targeting the shelters, Chen noted. They want the infrastructure, not casualties. They're trying to force us to divide our forces. The Crixans had launched simultaneous attacks on 3 Earth colony worlds, clearly expecting to find them defenseless. Instead, they'd found evacuated cities and hardened underground bunkers. But the attacks had achieved their strategic purpose. Earth's hidden fleet was now spread thin, trying to protect too many worlds at once. Admiral. A junior communications officer approached, her face pale. We're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council chamber itself. But it's on an old Earth frequency. One we haven't used in decades. Chen's eyes narrowed. Put it through to my private terminal. The message was short, encoded in a cipher that had been compromised 30 years ago. To most observers, it would appear to be random noise. But to Chen, it told a story that made her blood run cold. Get me Ambassador Lin. Now. Minutes later, Lin's hologram appeared in the command center. The diplomat looked exhausted but determined. Tell me you have good news, Helena. Better than good. We have a council member feeding us information. Someone high-ranking enough to know about Earth's old communication protocols. Lin's eyes widened. Who? Better question, why now? This message warns of something bigger than colonial attacks. The Crixans aren't just trying to punish Earth for defending the Rixians. They're afraid. Of us? Of what we represent. Chen brought up the decoded message. According to our mystery friend, there's a faction within the council that's been working for centuries to maintain control through fabricated crises. They engineer conflicts, then swoop in with peacekeeping forces. The Crixans are just their enforcers. But why? The command center's alarms suddenly screamed to life. On the main display, sensor readings showed massive energy spikes from the Crixian fleet. Multiple quantum signatures. Tactical shouted. They're trying to breach the shelter shields. Chen's blood ran cold. The shelter's quantum shielding used Rixian technology the Crixans shouldn't have known how to counter. How did they get the frequency codes? Rogers demanded. Because we have a mole, Chen said quietly. Someone who knew about the evacuation. Someone with access to our defense protocols. She turned to Lin. Someone trying to force our hand. Understanding dawned in Lin's eyes. They want us to commit our full fleet to defend the colonies. Leaving Earth itself vulnerable. Chen's artificial hand clenched. And leaving the Rixian refugees unprotected. The command center erupted into chaos as reports flooded in. The Crixian attacks were intensifying, but something was wrong with their pattern. They were hitting targets that seemed random, unless. They're not random at all, Chen breathed. Ambassador, look at the attack sites. Compare them to the locations of known Rixian cultural artifacts, the ones we evacuated from their homeworld. Lin's hands flew over her console. They're hunting them. Every target corresponds to a storage site for Rixian historical records, art pieces, scientific databases. They're not trying to defeat us militarily, Chen realized. They're trying to finish what they started, the complete erasure of Rixian civilization. And someone in our command structure is helping them do it. The mysterious council message suddenly made sense. This wasn't just about territory or resources. This was about control, about maintaining a system where smaller species could be erased the moment they became inconvenient. Orders, Admiral? Rogers asked. Chen looked at the burning colonies, at the desperate messages from Earth's allies, at the encoded warning from their council source. They were being pulled in too many directions, exactly as planned. Contact the Bryn and Tather fleets, she said finally. Tell them we know where the real target is. And it's time to spring our own trap. Because whoever the traitor was, they'd made one crucial mistake. They thought humanity's strength came from its ships, its technology, its hidden fleets. They were about to learn that humanity's real power lay in its ability to unite others against tyranny. Even if some of those allies were sitting in the heart of the Galactic Council itself. This is a message to all species of the galaxy. Admiral Chen's transmission cut through the jamming, broadcasting on every frequency. Behind her, the UES Righteous Fury led Earth's fleet toward the Galactic Council Central Space Station, a massive structure that housed representatives from over 50 spacefaring civilizations. For centuries, you have been lied to. Manipulated. Forced to watch as your neighbors were branded terrorists, their worlds invaded, their cultures erased. All in the name of peace. The station's defensive grid activated, its weapon ports opening. But they didn't fire. You were told quantum technology was impossible. That faster-than-light communication couldn't work. That certain species were simply more advanced, more worthy of power. More lies. On millions of worlds, beings of all species watched as their communication systems automatically activated, overridden by Earth's hidden AI networks. The truth could no longer be contained. Right now, my fleet approaches the Council Station with evidence that will expose everything. Proof of the corruption that has poisoned this institution. Proof of the real reason some species are targeted while others are protected. Proof of. Her transmission cut off as the station's primary weapon fired. A lance of energy that could shatter planets speared toward Earth's fleet. But the ships weren't there anymore. The quantum stealth field dropped, revealing Earth's true fleet position, directly behind the station. The ships they'd been tracking were holograms, projected by technology the Council had dismissed as impossible. Clever, a new voice cut in. But not clever enough. Chen's artificial hand clenched as she recognized the voice. Admiral Darius Van, Earth's former fleet commander. The mole they'd been hunting. You see, Van continued, we knew you'd try something like this. Known ever since we let you think you'd discovered our agent in your command. And now. Space rippled as the real Crixian fleet emerged from quantum space, not dozens of ships, but hundreds. Thousands. An armada that had been waiting for this moment. Your entire fleet, your best commander, trapped in a kill zone, Van gloated. All because you couldn't resist playing hero. This is why Earth was never meant to have real power, Helena. You're too sentimental. Too concerned with right and wrong when the galaxy runs on strength alone. Chen smiled. You're right about one thing, Darius. We are sentimental. We do care about right and wrong. And that's exactly why we're going to win. She nodded to Rogers. Show them. Across the galaxy, on every world that had suffered under Council peacekeeping, quantum transmitters activated. Not Earth technology, but Rixian devices, hidden for decades. The Rixians, it seemed, hadn't been quite as helpless as everyone thought. You forgot something, Darius, Chen said quietly. The Rixians didn't just give us medical technology. They taught us about connection. About unity. About how quantum entanglement works on levels your faction never imagined. The transmitters pulsed. And suddenly, every ship in local space lost power. Every ship except Earth's fleet and those of their allies. 30 years ago, Chen continued, the Rixians chose Earth to protect their legacy. Not their technology, their understanding of how the universe really works. How all things are connected. How corruption spreads like a cancer, but so does hope. The station's weapons went dark. The Crixian fleet drifted, powerless. On 1,000 worlds, the truth was spreading, not just about the Council's corruption, but about the possibility of resistance. But victory would come at a price. Admiral, Rogers said softly. The quantum pulse, the calculations were correct. Once initiated, the only way to prevent it from spreading to all technological systems is Is to contain it within a quantum-capable vessel, Chen finished. I know. She stood, her artificial hand gleaming. The righteous fury systems can handle it. With the right pilot. Helena, no. The Fury was always a sacrifice play, James. We built her to carry this payload. To demonstrate that sometimes, victory requires giving everything for what's right. She smiled. Get the fleet clear. And tell her that Earth kept its promise. The Rixians will have their homes back. Their culture will survive. And the galaxy will remember why you should never mistake kindness for weakness. The righteous fury broke formation, driving toward the heart of the Crixian fleet. Its quantum systems began to pulse, containing the cascade that would otherwise spread across the galaxy, destroying all advanced technology. As Chen's ship disappeared into the quantum storm of her own making, the galaxy watched. They saw a commander sacrifice everything to save not just her allies, but even her enemies, preventing the pulse from spreading to civilian worlds. And in that moment, something changed. Species that had been afraid to resist found their courage. Corrupt officials found themselves facing populations that would no longer be silenced. The careful web of lies and manipulation that had maintained power for centuries began to unravel. Because Earth had shown them something more powerful than any weapon, the strength to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. The quantum storm surrounding the righteous fury collapsed in on itself, taking Admiral Chen and her ship into whatever dimension lay beyond normal space. In its wake, the disabled Crixian fleet hung motionless against the stars, their mighty weapons silenced by Rixian technology they dismissed as primitive. But across the galaxy, something else was spreading faster than any quantum pulse, the truth. We're receiving reports from 17 Council worlds, Rogers announced, his voice tight with emotion. Mass protests outside government buildings. Military units refusing orders to fire on civilians. And he paused, checking his readings again. The Crixian colonies are revolting. Their own people have seen the evidence. Seen what their leaders really are. Ambassador Lin's hologram flickered in the command center. It's not just the colonies. 3 council species have already withdrawn their representatives. More are demanding emergency sessions to investigate the corruption claims. The whole system is coming apart. On the main display, they watched as previously loyal council enforcement fleets turned their weapons on their former masters. The careful balance of power maintained through centuries of manipulation was crumbling in hours. But victory wasn't assured yet. Multiple quantum signatures. Tactical shouted. Something's coming through, it's massive. Space itself seemed to tear open as the Crixian Empire's final weapon revealed itself, a planetary-scale battle station, its hull constructed from the stripped resources of a dozen conquered worlds. At its heart pulsed a quantum core that made the righteous Fury's power plant look like a fusion torch. So, the mighty Admiral Chen sacrificed herself for nothing, Supreme Commander Vox of the Crixian Empire sneered across all frequencies. How typically human, to throw away your strongest piece for mere sentiment. The battle station's weapons began to power up, its targeting systems locking onto Earth's fleet, the Council station, everything in range. Your revolution dies here, Vox declared. And then we'll show the galaxy what real power looks like. No more pretending to be peacekeepers. No more maintaining the Council's polite fictions. Just pure domination, as it always should have been. Rogers looked at the tactical display, his heart sinking. Even with their allies, they didn't have the firepower to scratch that monster's shields. Chen's sacrifice had stopped the quantum pulse, but this. And then he saw it. A tiny anomaly in the battle station's power readings. All ships, full scan of Sector 793, he ordered. Focus on quantum resonance patterns. The data poured in, and Rogers began to laugh. Care to share the joke? Lin asked. They built it with stripped Rixian technology, Rogers said. Technology they never bothered to fully understand. Just like they never understood why the Rixians chose Earth as their allies. He opened a channel to all Earth ships and their allies. Helena knew. She knew all along. The quantum pulse wasn't just about disabling their fleet. It was about proving a point. About showing the galaxy that everything is connected. Understanding dawned in Lynn's eyes. The resonance is still building, Rogers finished. She's not gone. The Fury didn't just disappear into quantum space. Its phase shifted, creating a resonance pattern that's spreading through all Rixian-derived technology. Including our mighty battle station? Vox's voice had lost its sneer. Impossible. Our shields were never meant to protect you from this, a familiar voice cut in. Admiral Chen's words echoed from every quantum-enabled device in the sector. They were meant to contain it. The battle station's quantum core began to pulse with the same ethereal light that had surrounded the Fury. But this time, the energy wasn't destructive. It was transformative. Across the galaxy, every piece of stolen Rixian technology activated, not to destroy, but to reveal. Quantum connections that had always existed, but that the Crixians had been too blind to see. The very technology they'd stripped from their victims became a network of truth, of memory, of justice. The battle station's weapons powered down, its systems recognizing their true purpose at last. And in its heart, a quantum gate opened, a portal back to normal space through which the righteous Fury emerged, scarred but intact. Did you really think, Chen's voice was tired but triumphant, that the Rixians would give humanity their greatest technologies without teaching us their greatest lesson? Everything is connected. Every act of cruelty creates its own justice. Every empire built on lies contains the seeds of its own revolution. As the battle station's crew surrendered, as more council worlds declared their independence, as the truth continued to spread, humanity had proven something extraordinary. They'd shown that the strongest weapon in the galaxy wasn't quantum technology or massive fleets. It was the power to inspire others to fight for what was right. 1 year later, Admiral Helena Chen stood in the Great Hall of the newly established Galactic Alliance, her artificial hand resting on the podium as she addressed representatives from over 100 species. The chamber itself was a symbol of change, built not in the sterile, imposing style of the old council, but incorporating architectural elements from every member species, including the flowing crystal spires of restored Rixian design. A year ago, we gathered in fear, she began. Today, we gather in hope. Not because the galaxy has become perfect, it hasn't. Not because all our problems are solved, they aren't. We gather in hope because we finally understand what the Rixians tried to teach us all along, that the universe isn't divided into strong and weak, advanced and primitive, worthy and unworthy. It's connected. All of it. All of us. In the audience, Ambassador Lin sat beside the Rixian representative, their crystalline wings now fully regenerated and shimmering with pride. Beside them were former council species who'd rejected their corrupt leadership, newly liberated peoples finding their voice, and even reformed Crixian worlds that had chosen a different path. The trial of the corrupt council leaders continues, Chen continued. Not for revenge, but for truth. Every day, we learn more about how they manipulated us, played us against each other, tried to convince us that power was the only law that mattered. She gestured to the quantum technology display behind her, showing the intricate web of connections between all things, the science that the Rixians had understood and that humanity had helped reveal to the galaxy. But we learned something far more important than their crimes. We learned that strength doesn't come from domination. It comes from connection. From standing together. From refusing to abandon our friends or our principles, no matter the cost. Former Admiral Van, now stripped of rank and awaiting trial, had testified about the old council's methods. How they'd deliberately suppressed technological understanding, keeping species isolated and afraid. How they'd engineered conflicts to justify their interventions. How they'd nearly succeeded in erasing entire civilizations from history. The Rixians chose Earth as their allies 30 years ago not because we were the strongest, or the most advanced, or the most worthy, Chen said. They chose us because they saw something in humanity that the Council had tried to stamp out of the galaxy, the willingness to stand up for what's right, even when it seems impossible. The understanding that true strength lies not in weapons or ships or technology, but in the connections we forge with others. She turned to the display showing the restored Rixian homeworld, its crystal cities once again floating among the clouds. Look at what we've accomplished in 1 year. Destroyed worlds rebuilt. Lost knowledge recovered. Ancient wrongs finally being made right. Not through force, but through cooperation. Through understanding. Through justice. The quantum core of the former Crixian battle station, now repurposed as the Alliance's central power source, hummed with energy. The same connections that had been used to dominate were now being used to unite, to heal, to build. But our work isn't finished, Chen continued. There are still those who believe that might makes right. Still those who would rather rule through fear than lead through wisdom. To them, I say, look around this chamber. Look at what happens when we choose to stand together. Look at what becomes possible when we remember that the true measure of a civilization isn't its weapons or its wealth, but its willingness to defend what's right. She smiled, her artificial hand catching the light. The old council thought Earth was naive for believing in friendship, in loyalty, in justice. They thought we were weak for refusing to abandon our allies. They never understood that these things aren't weaknesses, they're the source of true strength. The kind of strength that can't be beaten because it grows stronger with every connection, every act of courage, every stand against tyranny. The assembled representatives rose in applause, their various forms and features unified in purpose if not in appearance. Among them were younger species looking to forge their own path, older ones learning to use their power responsibly, and reformed ones working to make amends for past wrongs. This is humanity's promise to the galaxy, Chen concluded. We will remember. We will stand with our friends. We will fight for what's right. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. Not because we're stronger, but because we're connected. All of us, together, reaching for something better than fear and domination. Something worthy of the stars themselves. As the applause thundered through the chamber, as quantum connections carried the message to worlds across the galaxy, the truth became clear. Earth's greatest victory hadn't been won through its warships or its hidden fleet or its advanced technology. It had been won by remembering a simple truth that the old council had tried to make the galaxy forget, that in the end, justice is stronger than power, courage is stronger than fear, and connection is stronger than domination. That was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not vengeance, but vision. Not just victory, but vindication of the belief that standing together, standing up for what's right, will always be worth the cost. And that was a lesson worth every sacrifice to teach.